Good morning, everyone. The term national security has a different meaning on the doorstep. People measure national security by how safe and secure they feel personally. Since my appointment to this portfolio in April 2011, I've devoted every day to improving that level of public confidence in this government's role in the area of national security. The results are hard fought and speak to the constant effort of all the security services to do the best for this community. Our Constitution creates a unique relationship between the government and the police, but it is one that takes work to make it work. Very often the importance of the partnership between us is not seen in the media, but the evidence is there. The recent successes in bringing charges and in many cases securing convictions in some cold cases is one such example. The Commissioner outlines a strategy, indicates the intended results, and seeks the government's support in funding it. We do so because we have confidence in the police and we believe that the people of this country want justice. This government supports the police in training, oversees investigative expertise, and enhanced equipment. We will continue to do so because we value safe communities and the men and women we rely on to achieve this. This government is a people's government, and so the grassroots empowerment of neighborhoods and the fight against crime and antisocial behavior is key to public safety success. Honest, hard-working men and women who want nothing more than to enjoy home life have created over 100 neighborhood watch organizations. Steadily, the community is seizing the initiative from the criminal element. Early this year, I challenged my team to step up the community interaction. We met with a number of ordinary citizens who indicated that the whole gang culture was foreign to them. We decided to produce an easy guide for the people, readily to hand, that would spell out the meaning of what they might be seeing in their communities and even in their own homes. Community action in gang prevention was distributed widely and well received. We have tackled this issue of gang violence and the gang culture head on. The message has been taken to the communities and, more importantly, to our educators. In partnership with various schools, the police have presented clear and relevant information complete with how to manage situations that often manifest in the classroom setting. People have been empowered with information and made to feel more confident in our proactive approach to these issues. I promise to use every means at my disposal to fight gang crime. In the House of Assembly, I introduced tough new legislation to deal with the economics of crime. The police and the courts can now take action against the proceeds of crime. Cash and other hard assets can and are being seized. We are determined that crime will not pay. The Ministry of National Security is the enforcement arm of tackling the issues of gang violence. However, to simply think we can arrest our way out of this problem is just ridiculous. Even in enforcement, we must have an eye to the social dysfunction that has created these issues. For every family that suffers the loss of a young man to gun violence, there are tens of others who worry about a similar fate. This is no way for young people to live, and we must provide them with a way out. Too much has been made of program names. What's in a name if the core functions are in place, operating as intended and achieving the right results? In February of this year, I promised a gang mediation program for Bermuda, and by June 30th, men and women were trained, 30 men and women were trained in best practice through Operation Street Safe out of Boston. A comprehensive strategy for gang mediation has been prepared and is on the cusp of full implementation. This is no quick fix, and this government is in this fight for the long haul. The bickering about infrastructure investment and its value that is featuring in this campaign seems to ignore the positive effect on our people and their quality of life. Earlier this year, highly skilled men and women from the Bermuda Fire and Rescue Service put down a serious fire at the Marsh Folly dump site. The pump that they used, along with the incredible length of hose available to them, made all the difference in restoring normality to the affected neighborhoods. It's fine to dismiss infrastructure investment on the blogs and in press releases, but real people know the value of investments like these, and this government will continue to invest in their best interests. We recognize that our work is dynamic. This government is determined to move from strength to strength in the area of public safety. Security services must be positioned to meet the expectations of 21st century public demands. The recently announced review of security in Bermuda will identify how best we join uniformed services to carry out specific missions. We will move towards the elimination of conscription and the development of a full-time regiment with a focus on a maritime role and joint operations with other agencies. We will ensure that the police have the flexibility to perform core functions of policing first, by reducing any demands for them to do other duties that may detract from fighting guns, gangs, drugs, and violence. We can be more efficient and targeted in our approach to public safety, and this government will lead the way to achieving this in 2013 and beyond. By any measurement, this ministry has delivered on its promises and mandate for the people of Bermuda. We have never wavered in our commitment to making Bermuda safer, and that commitment has been matched by action. Our record is one of promises made and promises delivered. Thank you.
Good morning to everybody. I guess I'll say from the outset what an honor it's been to work as the junior minister in support of Minister Perinchief since April 2001 when we were appointed together. And what we have worked on as a team, and the ministers explained some of the initiatives, but there was a very deliberate three-point strategy in place. The first one was to ensure that the law enforcement arm was targeting those offenders who were posing the highest risk to public safety, and that was the minister's #1 priority on his appointment last year. And the second part of the strategy was to work towards getting new legislation in and then assessing the effectiveness of that legislation. And then the third part of the strategy was to mobilize the community. And that's been our strategy from day one, and it remains to this day. So in putting that strategy together, what were some of the outcomes? What were some of the results? We saw some very rapid work on the part of the police and the targeted operations that they were doing to target those who were posing the highest risk to public safety. That work intensified. The new legislation enacted through 2011 and right through 2012 is now all in place. Shooting incidents have gone down since the highs experienced in 2009, 2010. Shootings resulting in deaths and injuries have also gone down since the highs we encountered a couple of years ago. The police recovery of firearms has gone up. The police recovery of ammunition has gone up. And importantly, the arrest of the priority offenders has also gone up. And also significantly, convictions recorded against those prolific priority offenders has also gone up. And one of the most rewarding outcomes has been the mobilization of the community, which continues to this day. And the community, the resolution to our problems rests ultimately in the community. So that has been the third part of what our strategy was. But we also recognize there's a considerable amount of work still to be done. A lot of work right now is being done in the prevention field. And what we all realize is that this work takes many, many years, because there has to be an unraveling and a reprogramming of some of the behaviors and the environment that has been entrenched for 20 or more years. But we will not rest until the last firearm is seized, the last bullet is recovered, and the last killer is brought to justice, and when the gang lifestyle is neutralized. And that's why we continue to work towards implementing better strategies with better outcomes and better results. We have put together several new ideas and several new strategies as part of our commitment to the people of Bermuda. And included in the new strategies, which you will see, is a national crime reduction plan. Now, the National Crime Reduction Plan is the next logical step because there's been a lot of heavy lifting over the last 18 months in terms of new legislation and the targeted anti-gang work that is in progress. What our National Crime Reduction Plan will do is raise the game and signals our intent to deal with the deeply rooted changes that are necessary and in our approach to crime prevention and crime reduction. We'll be working across ministries, across community groups, across charities and other non-government agencies. And what the plan ultimately aims to do is to reduce youth offending and reduce delinquency, and significantly raise the awareness of what individuals and community groups can do and must do to reduce crime. We will be supportive of new, first-of-a-kind, performance-based incentives, which will encourage the highest levels of crime prevention and crime reduction work in the work that all of these agencies do, all in a bid to eliminate this next generation of gun and gang crime. So what are the main strands of the National Crime Reduction Plan? Crime reduction is right at the top. We'll be looking at the cost effectiveness of programs that are in place now and programs that are contemplated for the future. Most importantly, it is going to be outcome focused. And we will be seeking to improve performance in all of these crime reduction and crime prevention programs by measuring very specific outcomes and measuring those results. And that is just a snapshot of what the government is working on now, and that National Crime Reduction Plan will be falling in place with other strategies that you will hear about in the coming weeks and months. And thank you very much for your time.
Ryan?
Yes. Oh, yes. I have a question for the Minister Perinchief, on the issue of gangs. We heard the initiatives from the government and heard about arrests. And can you say anything to the community as far as what they can do to play a role in dealing with the gang problem? We know we can't arrest our way out of it, and we know government can't legislate. And some people still believe in the community that it's the government's problem, the police problem. What can they do?
I believe that the community has buy-in now in the remedy, in providing remedies. In particular, we found that the schools, following the initiative by David Merfield and his team to go in and advise educators, advise teachers as to what to look out for, to advise parents what to look out for in gang behavior. We found now that some members of the education community, some of the high schools, are coming forward now and asking for the police to come into the schools in incidents where things get out of control. We did recently see an example in Cedar Bridge where the police were invited in. The perpetrators, and it was gang-related, are appearing in court. I've talked to the Minister of Education. She has ensured that a team is going in to give counseling to those students who were affected. So we've got now a community effort in dealing with gang behavior. It's no longer isolated to just the police and the enforcement agencies. We've also stepped up the assessment of young children from age 2 to 5 and then on to identify any dysfunctional behavior in them and giving the family counseling. So it's now a holistic approach to remediating this gang problem. We're not saying that it will stop all at once because you realize it's generational, but we are now drilling down to root causes and actually dealing with the people, the functionaries, and those who would become involved.
Staying on topic, Brian?
You've adopted PACE over the last few years. Is that the end of it, or is there more to PACE that we would like to consider perhaps in Bermuda?
Well, yeah, there is more to PACE. In actual fact, as you know, PACE is a dynamic process. Even in the UK, from which we adapted it, it is being changed as, you know, precedents are set in different cases. But in Bermuda, we do have to rule out the last part, and that is when somebody is incarcerated or brought into custody, the implementation of a custody officer and custody processes while people are actually in custody. So that's the second phase. And we do have a consultant who's working with us. He's been here just short of a year to roll out the second part of PACE. Ex-Commissioner Jonathan Smith may have something to contribute since he's more current than I am.
Not too much more to add, Brian, other than, this was a process we commenced in about 2004, and during my period as commissionership, the first sort of first sections of PACE were starting to get rolled out. But as the minister said, it is a multi-year project, and PACE continues to evolve. And you can be rest assured that both the police and the government will be swayed by what the current best practice is, and PACE is an evolving piece of legislation. So we'll do what's necessary to make sure that. Sorry?
There is a work in action then.
Very much so.
Yeah. Is there anything that you particularly would like to see, looking forward to bringing forward from PACE? You haven't done it yet?
Between the minister and myself, we're always taking advice from the practitioners, and the practitioners at this point is the Bermuda Police Service and advice from the Attorney Generals, but nothing jumps out right to me at this particular point.
Yeah, Minister, my question is in relation to Mr. Dickerson's, the news about Mr. Dickerson's arrest and his bail hearing on December 16th. I guess given that there are often connections between drugs and gangs, this might be a relevant question to ask you. Is the PLP sending the wrong message by standing behind Mr. Dixon as a candidate? Shouldn't we be adopting a no tolerance stance?
I'll speak to the last part first. The decision to retain Mr. Dixon as a candidate would not be, my decision. In fact, it would be that of the party, and you'd have to talk to the party leader and the candidates selection committee about that part. But on the other issue of sending a message, I realize Mr. Dickerson himself spoke on this matter. He may have indicated that the drug in question was marijuana. I don't know. We do know that there is a move and an evolution to eventually decriminalize small amounts of marijuana for personal use. At this point, I must emphasize that it is still an illegal substance, and any amount of it is illegal, and it's illegal to be in possession of it. On the issue of actually, using it or not using it, as I said before, there is, at this point, and me as a Minister of National Security, there has to be a zero tolerance for possession or use of any illicit drug, and that's the position that we and the party continue to take, and the government continue to take.
Well, that's my question.
Yes.
As a minister, is your party sending the wrong message by keeping on the candidate?
I am not aware of whether he's being retained or not. It's not election day yet, and I'm sure that decisions are being made in the boiler room as to what happens in this case.
Okay. Do you know when he was arrested?
I did some research, and I was aware that it was, I think, September the 8th. And that only came to light by his own disclosure. But I do not believe that that it was a generally known thing that he had been arrested. Certainly some of us were very shocked, surprised, and caught on the back foot by the revelation.
Well, did they reveal it after he was rolled out or before?
Well, it's obvious because it just came to the notice of people within the party. Just within, I guess, days, disclosed by himself, or.
Within the last few days? Okay.
Yes, to my knowledge, yes.
Right. What we understand is that his file is actually on your desk. Could you confirm all of that?
I'm not a policeman, sir.
Okay. So you have no knowledge of this?
Beg your pardon?
His file wasn't in your office?
No, I'm completely baffled by that,
Okay.
what file you're talking about.
I was just checking.
Yeah.
I guess my other question relates to decriminalization.
Mhm.
it hasn't, you indicated the marijuana possession for personal use has not actually yet been decriminalized.
That's correct.
Okay, but we're moving towards it.
I'll say this, there's a policy with the police service to caution for amounts around about, I think, for personal use, around about 3 grams or thereabout. But that is policy, it's not law. In other words, the police, I believe, have the option to caution for small amounts for personal use, but it's discretionary. And those decisions are made by, I believe, through a set formula that the commissioner oversees.
If I could just add,
Yeah.
I think one of the important outcomes of that particular policy is to recognize that the police work in conjunction with the Department of Public Prosecutions. And the ultimate aim is to ensure that our young Bermudians in particular do not get criminal records as a result of these transgressions of the law. Caution policy has actually been in place for 30 to 40 years, at least, through the police. But it was, in recent years, it's become more codified and, agreements in place between the DPPs and the police. I'm not speaking about the Dickerson case at all when I say that. I'm just saying that there is there's a caution policy in place for a very specific reason. It's really to give people a second chance. And I know Mr. Perinchief and I, when we were police officers, cautioned dozens, if not hundreds, dozens ourselves, but we're aware of hundreds of young men and women who received cautions because they carried small quantities of drugs, because it was the right thing to do.
Sounds like decriminalization to me. Are we saying then, as a party, that there is a plan to decriminalize marijuana?
Well, I am aware, from where I sit, that decriminalization has to be discussed at length, and there is developing a consensus that decriminalization of marijuana for small amounts and personal use should be looked at for the future, yes.
And I think, Minister, if I could add as well, our position is laid out in our throne speech document of 2011, very specifically laid out there, specific reference.
Okay, great.